Center of Return. We would like to provide information on the results of this survey, which is titled Psychological and Social Help, ATO Veterans Point of View. It's dedicated to the results of the interviews with the veterans. And I would like to introduce myself and our participants who will be participating today in our roundtable. I'm Kateryna Pronoza, the psychologist. Also, here's my colleague, Oleg Novak, psychologist at the Center of Trauma Therapy of Return. Also, we have Vsevolod Stebliuk, the assistant to the Minister of Defense, professor, doctor of medical sciences, as well as other participants, members of our association, of our organization. And I hope they will be also working with us today. So the floor is given to Oleg Novak. Good afternoon, esteemed friends. I would like to welcome you all and thank you for your attention to the presentation of our survey, which was done with the assistance of International Renaissance Foundation. We hope that our presentation will last for 10 minutes. After that, we hope to get your questions or comments. And then this will be the format of the roundtable of a free discussion. We got this idea to organize this survey a few months ago when we paid attention to the difference between the reports made by the state bodies on their activities in psychological support of the ATO veterans, and also the perception of ATO veterans of this support of the state. In order to understand what the difference is, for that we have organized this survey. There's nothing strange in it, in this fact of the difference. Any organization which is doing something, it's forming certain vision of itself, of what we do. They believe that, well, we are helping, and that is the self-supporting vision. We do all we can. It looks like it doesn't depend on us. At the same time, there is such a difference or such discrepancy when some people were saying we perceive this support of the state in a different way. And we would like to present the results of the survey, which was conducted in March 2016. The participants were the demobilized participants of ATO. This is not a criticism. These are just the facts. We have different organizations present here, state organizations, civil society organizations, and our task is not to stop doing something good. We need to see what is the viewpoint of veterans on what support of the state they feel. So let's start. The objective of our survey was to assess the quality of services rendered to the veterans of ATO on psychosocial adaptation. Additionally, because we already had an access to veterans, we suggested to organize an additional survey in order to find out some symptoms of post-traumatic disorders we can say that we don't know of a single survey conducted in Ukraine
Ми проводили на території України серед
we have done that on the territory of Ukraine. The idea was the person comes home. What is the environment at home? Does the person feel that the state takes care of the person? I will not be speaking in slogans. I will speak slower for the interpreters. But we would have to organize our work so that people could feel our support. In our survey, we had some questions, and these were: where do the veterans get information from on what the state is doing for them? What are the sources of information? How much are the veterans informed on existing psychosocial services? How much are they involved to these activities? How many people are getting involved? The state declares something, but people use only 40 or 60% of what. How much are people satisfied by the services? What are the needs of the participants of ATO? And the additional question was were directed to find out the symptoms of the post-traumatic syndrome, stress disorder, the target group that we used. We were looking at the access points. One of the structural units works in the hospitals, and our target group was the most vulnerable group, the people who got wounded or who were in the system of hospitals in 2014-2016. We were planning to take 400 people for our survey, so that the error is not more than 5%. We needed 390 people, but in reality we had 431. Out of them, 304 are demobilized, and 127 are the servicemen who are either at the hospitals or they are on holidays. We were first defining what are the three regions of Ukraine. We decided that this should be the center, east or south, and west. So at the first stage, we decided that this will be Kyiv, Zhytomyr, and Odessa regions. We selected the hospitals, and after that, randomly we were selecting the persons to who we had access. We would like to show you the results. First question: what were the sources of information? Where do veterans get information about the services that the state provides? 22.6%. That is what people hear from their comrades. The next one is volunteers. And the third one is internet. Of course, the question is who puts information in the internet, what are the websites, but that is the source which is not identified as the support of the state. But we know how important it is for people to feel that there is such a support. The next one is members of the family, and 7.3% are state services. The structure of the sources of information looks like that. Next, how much are people satisfied? Those who have the numbers of hotline are 48%. The question was, if you want to look at our questionnaires,
два листа.
here are two letters. We don't know who these people were. We encode these questionnaires. If a person receives some support elsewhere or is included into some training, then this person is registered as the person that is within the system of support. That is our internal system. If you want to have a look at that, you can have it. So those who have the numbers of hotline are 48%. Those who called were just half of them. Now we are talking about whether they are satisfied or not satisfied. You see the colors. 40.7% believe that they do feel support of the experts at the hotlines. The level of satisfaction of demobilized participants of ATO from getting this service is at the initiative of the people from the social protection, social maintenance services. Only 25% are saying that they are satisfied with that.
На
18% veterans were contacted by the representatives of regional administrations, and they offered them the services of going to some place for recovery. Only 18% of people had such phone calls. More than half of them are satisfied after getting such support. The representatives of military commissariats. Не понимаю.
З них 43,3 і 6% відповідно класифікуються як добре і відмінно. Тепер, коли ветерани АТО самостійно зверталися...
Now, when the veterans themselves went to the social maintenance organs, bodies, the sanitary resort institutions, how demobilized veterans perceive treatment there. Most of them believe that this support is something good for them. Here's the table. That shows different governmental bodies which were contacting the ATO veterans. The first one is the Department of Social Maintenance of the Population. The second one is the Center of the Assistance to Veterans of ATO, then Territorial Military Commissariat, then the Employment Center, and the Sanitary Resort Institution. And the last one is Psychologist, Psychotherapist.
Санаторно-курортний заклад 26, психолог, психотерапевт 32%. Графічно...
Graphically, again, the satisfaction from relations with these entities, you can see at this diagram. The first one is psychologist, psychotherapist, then sanitary resort institution, employment center, territorial military commissariat, center of assistance to veterans, and the Department of Social Maintenance of the Population.
В зайнятості рівень задовільно оцінки, це червона лінія. Найкращий баланс в цьому плані можна говорити, якщо так іти згори вниз, психолог, психотерапевт, санаторно-курортний заклад і Центр допомоги ветеранам АТО. Але в Центр допомоги, ще раз нагадаю, всього 22% зверталося.
If we generalize all this data, then it looks like that. We do not include data on hospitals. People were not assessing the hospitals. These are the state authorities, the state bodies. 45% and 18% believe that their assessment is good or excellent.
Оцінка задоволеності.
The assessment of how much the participants of ATO are satisfied from participation in lectures and trainings, consultations.
На якихось лекціях, бо то могла бути армія. Це якби так. За всю історію 42% мали доступ до
42% had an access to a person who is psychologist. In the future, 65% of respondents, in case they need it, they will go to psychologist or psychotherapist. Number of ATO participants who got their answers to their questions. The first one is the participants of military actions. The next one is getting communal privileges. The next one is allocation of land. The next one is material payments. And the next one is availability of jobs.
серед тих, хто вже демобілізовані, 63,5% оформили пільги. Виділення землі 17,8% говорять про те, що ми одержали. І матвиплати 60,5%. Наявність роботи. Шановні присутні, хочу звернути вашу увагу.
I would like to draw your attention to availability of jobs. Only 41% of demobilized people say that they have no problem with jobs. What about the rest 59%? Out of 59%, 59% say we know that there are opportunities to get training in different institutions. We were asking, do you know that this is available? 59% say that I know that there are such opportunities. But these are people who say that we have problems with work. We either do not want or we do not have it.
Ставили запитання.
The question was why people do not go to psychologists for psychological support.
Віра до того, що хтось, в принципі, мені може допомогти.
One is mistrust to psychologists. Then they don't want to show that they're weak. Then they want to forget it. Then they hope that it will pass itself. Then because it is expensive, it is far away, there's no access to it, and there's no knowledge about that.
Наступним питанням.
The next one was how do veterans assess what they need, what their needs are. Material assistance is 67%, Then information where to go, 60% for servicemen, 46% for demobilized. Based on that data, we can say that people who come back from the ATO zone, they do not get sufficient information on types of services, possibility to get emotional and moral support, 43 and 49%. That is important for people, let's not forget it. And legal aid. Here you can see that people who are wounded now, who are not demobilized, they require more support. The next question, which is how to submit information about possible symptoms. We were using the questionnaire PCL5. It's a screening instrument. The person can understand whether I have this or that symptom. We cannot present all the results because there's mass media and we are afraid that the information might be distorted. But we understand that we need to give this information so that people come for support. Only strong people do that. They don't say that everything's fine, it will pass by its own. Look at this diagram, 39% of people have this symptom. It was difficult to sleep during the last 2 weeks, 39%. This diagram shows 5 biggest symptoms, and I will read what they are. Difficult to sleep. Question 4. People got distressed when someone would remind them of the stress event. Number 17. They were in condition of being very, very careful. Number 10. They accused themselves or someone else for the event or for what has happened. Number 1. Reminiscences about the stressful event. People are saying that this happens to us very often. There are many other symptoms. The lowest numbers, 11% of people say that they experienced that. I felt so as if this stressful event is happening again. Number 12. We lost interest to something from which we got satisfaction in the past. And also people say that they survived, that they could not be happy for their close ones. They could not feel some warmth. Is that too much or too little? Well, that is so. The next slide. This is the data of the test.
Рівень такої умовної норми і говорить про те, що він виділяє більшу кількість людей, які симптоматично говорять, що в нас є цей певний симптом. То За цим тестом подивіться, що виходить. Це блоки, які належать до самого тесту. Є блок втручання спогадів.
That is intervention of reminiscences,
Блок уникнення.
avoidance.
Про те, що важко переживати позитивні емоції.
It is difficult to have to enjoy positive emotions. It's like a person is not now interested in the world. People cannot experience positive emotions, and the condition of overexcitement. Some demobilized people say that they have the situations when they cannot get concentrated, it's difficult to fall asleep. All the data allow us to say that we need to treat people, but not everyone. Some people have enough strength in themselves to overcome problems themselves. 13% of people say that they might have some symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. That is actually the average for the world, and our survey is close to other indicators, and that could become the basis for psychological awareness campaigns. We need to inform the veterans of ATO what symptoms they may have after they return, how long they may last, so that every demobilized person becomes a psychologist, so that they do not believe that this will pass away on its own. One of our important tasks is to teach the person how to diagnose herself or himself, and also to explain where they can go to get assistance.
Які переживають певні події, яких немає тут, в громадському житті. На цьому основні наші презентації завершені.
So this is the end of presentation. If you want to contact us, please, we have an email, so we have an opportunity to communicate. Now, let's conduct our meeting in the framework of the dialogue. If you paid attention to some figures, maybe some of our approaches, we can share our experience and to give some interesting information in order to organize our work in a more proper way. We have time and opportunity to do this. As I know, we have similar numbers and figures, and we should provide information to society, to servicemen, and to adequately consult people. And I addressed to several Ukrainian companies for help in order to create a single media resource to provide information on psychologists, a single database on psychologists. And I would be And these companies, one provides hosting and second helps to create this resource. And everyone, every psychologist can use this system for free. We communicated already with you, and we hope for further cooperation. Thank you. And about the surveys, it would be very interesting to speak to you on this. I'm sorry. But I would like to give the floor to the People's Deputy. We have not much time, so all these surveys, for me, there is only one incorrect thing at the beginning, that you said that this is most vulnerable environment. Those people, those guys, they are now in your hands, and they are in the hospitals, in the veteran environment, and this is the best socialization of these guys. And this data is here thanks to you, because if we look at our demobilized guys that were not treated in those hospitals, the results would be absolutely different. And this data, our psychologists, both professional psychologists and volunteers, provided help to our guys, and now we see positive picture. It's not a negative picture. And what it is important for us to understand, it's time when our volunteers, psychologists, you can't support the system by yourself. It's very difficult for you to work, and we should systemize this activity. The state provides a huge amount of money for psychological rehabilitation of 50 million hryvnias. Last year, and I have a report, and everyone can look it up. And I asked our veteran organization to say, the list for 18 million hryvnias. He provided more than for the 4,000 servicemen. They provided help for this, and 16 institutions that provide this help. I conducted the research. I sent deputies' request to these institutions, and from this list, only 2 institutions answered and said Orenich and Mineralny Ostrich and mineral waters institutions. They provided information on the number of psychologists. They have 3 and 5 psychologists, and they provided help for to these people. They had 8 psychologists, and they can cover this number of people. And now we conduct an investigation. And Lermontovsky Sanatorium, according to the service, they provided 2 million hryvnias to 480 servicemen. But Lermontovsky Sanatorium answered they didn't provide this service. So it is important for us, those professionals, psychologists and volunteers, we should organize ourselves in some forms of organizations and funds, because we got the list who provided this help. There's no sums there, but we found those servicemen to whom they can provide the psychological help. And there are some charity foundations and organizations, and even you're a private person, entrepreneur, you can work with any institution where our guys undergo rehabilitation. Because we know that this word is not completely correct because we don't have proper rehabilitation, but our deputies, they have a draft law, and we provided this draft law to Kateryna, so you can find the information. This is a rather big document. Your activity is very important. We need you not only as psychologists, but you should be also managers, or to find those who can be managers in order to organize you and to help you in your valuable work. Vera Georgievna Shevchenko, she from Irpinsky hospital, she sometimes calls me even at night. And you should get from the state what you really deserve, because the state provides the money, and we cannot get the money, but some organizations, institutions, sometimes suspicious institutions, they get millions. And we should understand who provided the money and to whom. And some organizations answer that this is a state secret and we cannot provide you with an information on ATO servicemen. And I say that we are people's deputies and we have the right, and you should provide the lists. And we can overcome this. And this year we can use the money that is provided, and we should be organized, and in this case you will be able to provide more help to the servicemen. And also, together with Vera Georgievna and Kateryna, the minister together with the Minister of Defense, we were able to reach the agreement that our volunteers, our psychologists, have the opportunity to work in military hospitals and in hospitals for the veterans that are under the Ministry of Health. And they said that they will be provided with the military rank of, and that they could have the salary of servicemen, 7,000 hryvnias. And I ask you, those associations of psychologists, our volunteers, everyone who works in hospitals, they should write an application to the chief doctors that you are ready to work professionally, and that you underwent attestation through your association, and we should provide money to those who need it, and we should organize, and we should be able to self-organize. This is a very important step this year, because it's natural. You cannot be volunteers forever, because your opportunities are limited. And in this case, you will be provided with the opportunity to go on more professional level, and it is for you to decide. If there are managers who are ready to help our psychologists, please address our organizations. You know that people are waiting for help, so please do this. Thank you very much, Oksana Anatolievna. It was very nice of you to say this, and I would like to tell you that we got the data on the results of the survey, and I'm, as a professional from non-governmental structure, when I had a feeling, a panic, that some volunteers will tell that something is wrong, but I saw that psychological help is assessed as good. This is a very good indicator. and why the assessment is not excellent. And maybe we have hotline everyone can address, and maybe there should be 100% of addresses to the on the hotline. People should be informed where they can address to, and also maybe there are some psychological issues. Maybe there is some avoidance when a person in a crisis cannot address for help, or maybe this is an issue of quality of psychological and social help. So we would like to address, to get the answer from our next speaker. Unfortunately, the meeting now begins, so I will leave the list where these 18 millions went. So some institutions do not confirm the information. So look through these 16 institutions and provide all the information to Kateryna. And there is also some number of servicemen who were provided with help. So maybe we should find out where this money went to, and in order to prevent this abuse next year. First of all, I would like to thank a Ukrainian association on recovery after psychotraumatic events for their work that they carried out and carry out now, and I hope that this work will continue. Together we started from Maidan and we went to ATO, and we do the same thing. And without psychological service, there won't be such achievements in rehabilitation of our servicemen that we have now. As to the scope and cover of the psychological help, it's still really low. And as this survey shows, and I will inform the minister on the results of the survey, it reflects the main problems: the absence of information and also requests for psychological help from the side of the military, the departments on moral and psychological support of military service. When psychologists go to servicemen, as it was in our hospitals, so they have immediate response, and then this work continues. And we should continue with this effort. And the minister adopted the order to provide psychological rehabilitation and support for servicemen. And also there will be information provided to the commissariats, and they will be able to provide information on psychological help. And this department informed me that this information is renewed. And the day before yesterday, I was in the Kyiv commissariat. There is information, but it is on the board, and they can say, oh, you should go and look, or a person can be sent to rehabilitation. And now they call people to inform on this rehabilitation. And in hospitals, according to the tender of the veteran cases, these are the materials of investigation, and it will reveal where money goes. And about the quality of these services, if we don't have a system, a professional rehabilitation, it's very difficult to get good results. If we just gather and speak, it doesn't provide much. And the other issue we want to solve is the introduction of changes to the law of Ukraine on military service and compulsory service. In the times of peace, there is additional holiday for all the servicemen. And in a special period, we have this holiday is cancelled in order to send servicemen for psychological help, rehabilitation. We should make him psychologically disabled, and he will be able to get there through psychiatric service. And that's why we have information about 30% from these that they just do this in order to provide him with the opportunity to get this rehabilitation. And if, for example, a person was at the front line, he wants to stay with his family during the holiday, not to go somewhere for rehabilitation. So we now initiate the changes to the law in order to provide paid holiday for the servicemen in order to undergo psychological rehabilitation. As to rehabilitation capabilities of the Ministry of Defense, we have 1,400 beds, and there were some formally everything is correct, and the value of staying for a day is 380 hryvnias, and the service provided 340. But these 380 hryvnias, this is a minimum, together with rehabilitation and physiotherapy and everything else. And now the tender is on the way, and we will see this time what will happen. And as Oksana Anatolyevna stated, the decision of the minister provided the positions of psychologists, 35 psychologists in sanatoriums, and there the positions of psychologists were introduced. Also in Pushchavaditsa you can address, and you can, and also in Truskavets there is vacant positions, 3 positions of psychologists in the sanatorium of the Ministry of Defense. And we will look and see how we can take part in this tender. And also, what Alexander Karchinskas told us about it, that the draft law on rehabilitation was submitted, and it was difficult to do this. And our veterans, they told that this draft law is rewritten from the law on rehabilitation of the disabled, and some changes were introduced, and I got 2 complaints in the name of the minister and from Irina Sisoyenko and her aides that I criticized their work. And I would like to say about this, I now speak not as a representative of the MOD, but as a doctor, as a specialist on rehabilitation. In the draft law, we may see that there should be a body created, executive body, that deals with rehabilitation. We understand that this body will be created in order to control the money, and this body will assess the capabilities of institutions and carry out certification, attestation, and to distribute funds. and there is no such institution in the world. So any organization can take part in this process, and also all those things, all those changes that we wanted to introduce, they disappeared from this law. So ergotherapist and the president also adopted these specialities, and qualification characteristics should be adopted by the Cabinet of Ministers, but these changes are not introduced into law, and they only speak about physiotherapy. So I said it as a doctor, as a specialist, because people will there will be a request, for example, if Stebliuk expressed the opinion of the ministry. I say that this is my personal position, my personal view. I would like to thank you and say that a lot has been done, and in the future, I see that we lack a single coordinating center that can bring all those results and recommendations of military psychologists and those who work in the area. So we should create maybe some social association on psychological help, and the civil society organizations, they should take initiative in their hands. We shouldn't wait for the results. We should push for results, and the association showed their work, and volunteers also provided help, and this is the only way. And I want to assure you that the Ministry of Defense and Mr. Poltorak is very think a lot about this rehabilitation, and some changes are introduced in the commissariats, and there is and they inform people on the opportunities for rehabilitation. Some groups are created for psychological rehabilitation, alpha, beta, omega departments of this psychological support. And the main achievement is that we started to speak on the equal basis with the civil society organizations and those who specialize in psychological rehabilitation. We are equal partners in this, and we have opportunity to speak, and we should hear each other, and there are opportunities to influence this process. And thank you once more. Also, the psychologists who help our servicemen. Thank you.
Thank you. To you as the doctor, as sincere person, as the representative of the state. Any questions?
Доброго дня.
Petro Dovkin. I'm psychologist. I'm coordinator of the service in Vinnytsia region. I have many questions. Who are the specialists which were employed by those institutions where rehabilitation is going on? I can tell you about Vinnytsia institution, 2 or 3 persons. For them, that's just the first year of work. They do not understand things. And while these people learn how to work, the years will pass. They organized 5-day training and they believe that people can work, but that is not so. no supervisory groups in the hospitals.
Був лікарі, ні. Хоча ці балансові групи придумали якраз лікарі. І не користуються. Це дуже важливо.
These are the groups that were invented by doctors, but they're not using them.
Що, наприклад,
Vinnytsky
Вінницький шпиталь,
hospital,
було 2,5, то люди, вибачають мене, але вони не люблять.
2 out of 3 people there are not specialists. They do not know what to do with that. There's a trauma. There are symptoms of PTSR, but they diagnose it as PTSR. So first question is who's working?
Що навіть цих людей вже ніхто звідти не забере. По закону України його взяли на роботу. Вже все.
These people are employed. Who will teach them? Who will teach them?
У нас тільки такі громадські організації, як ОСП, як наша служба, мають
We have some
достатньо
civil society organizations which have experts and which have the right to teach, but they will not come to us because we are not the state agency or state body.
і питання відношення.
And
Знову буду говорити тільки про Вінницький.
it's again about Vinnytsky Hospital. Medical assistance is at a very high level.
Відношення персоналу.
The attitude of personnel, everything's fine, but when we are talking,
Ми працюємо боротися.
we've been working there as volunteers for 2 years.
Так, у нас такі лишилось приблизно однакова кількість людей. І хочу сказати про цих людей, що дуже фахові люди. То люди,
And these volunteers are
мінімум років
great experts. They've been working for 8-10 years in psychology, psychotherapy. They have experience of work with military.
саме виїжджають з зону АТО,
They go to ATO zone.
з сім'ями працюють.
They work with families.
Але хочу вернутися в ту пісочницю, звідки я почав, трохи так відійшов. Але цих людей так
But
гарненько, коли набрали людей на роботу,
when they were recruiting people to work, employing people,
хтось працювати, то вибачте.
they told these people, if you believe that you will be working in anti-crisis service, then don't think so.
Мене дуже це турбує.
And I'm concerned with that.
Наші психологи дуже такі розуміють, що робота психолога, вони дуже в нас цінуються. Це так. На жаль, вони такі низька. І друге питання щодо
And one more question.
на тендер. Ми в тому
As to submission to tender,
на тендер.
we submitted documents to tender.
Такі умови є, але там
There were all the terms described. There was one term
ставці два психологи.
that you should have 2 psychologists, which are full-time paid psychologists.
Я зателефонував,
And when I called them,
вияснив питання. От у нас є організація.
and I said, we have the organization, we have experts who had training, they've been working for a long time. I don't want to say anything else.
Так. Ну, тобто, да. Так. Тобто є такі умови, що громадська організація туди не проб'ється. З одної умови, що у нас
Such organization as us, we will not be able even to participate in the tender because we don't have these 2 people as full-time employees.
працювати, продовжувати,
Our volunteers will continue to work in hospitals,
але дуже виникає таке питання, що будуть робити
but
на станції.
what will those do who are full-time employed?
Але воно так є.
Я вам дуже дякую.
Thank you so much, and thank you for Vinnytsky Hospital.
Дуже багато поранених і дуже
Many wounded people were there, and they were treated professionally. Basically, even if it comes to the Cabinet of Ministers, they employ those who are easy to work with, but not those who are experts. We also work with return of military. First of all, I agree. The state and civil society organizations have different criteria of assessment.
Ті послуги, які надаються державою, вони абсолютно потрібні, і ми так само підтримуємо ті всі державні ініціативи, які
The services provided by the state are needed, but more professional personnel is to be attracted to this work.
сподіваюся, що все ж таки цього року дійде до нормального стану той законопроект, який розробляється вже тривалий час. Ми так само до цього докладемо всі
I hope that the draft law will be passed this year. But my question is to the research itself, is to your survey.
По ветеранах АТО, і наскільки розуміємо, статистики по поверненнях взагалі немає. Тобто є статистика по військовослужбовцях, які проходять службу в Збройних силах на
I was looking for some statistical data, and I understand that
небойових втрат.
there are
По завершенню служби
there's no data on completion of service.
взагалі ні
We cannot assess the level of divorces or suicides among ATO veterans.
така статистика проводитись неможлива. Є загальна кількість самогубств, але в ній не виділена кількість самогубств серед ветеранів ні Афганістану, ні АТО, ні миротворчих місій, в яких брали участь наші військові. І тому я хотіла вас запитати з приводу того, чи було питання про розлучення серед ветеранів.
Was there a question about divorces? No.
Це було би наше прохання, як від нашої організації.
So that would be the request from us. Please ask the veterans about their family status. Talking about suicides, now the information is being processed.
Досить складно, тому що
It's quite difficult because any fact of death
кримінальне
is a criminal case.
якраз аналізувати цю інформацію, ну, скажу так, не розказуючи те, що є інформація для службового користування, проводиться збір інформації
This information is collected,
слідчому управлінню національним
but it is difficult to analyze such type of data.
прокуратурою. Ми відстежимо, наразі поки що рано,
It is too early to make any conclusions.
тому що невелика вибірка, повірте, ну трошки в нас завищують всі ці показники
All the indicators are not registered correctly,
наших медіа,
especially when it comes to mass media.
те, що програємо.
We are not just losing information war. You turn on the TV, and from all the TV channels, you hear just negative information, and you cannot understand anything.
До об'єктивізації нам ще дуже далеко. Але намагаємось робити.
We're trying, but we're trying hard.
Доброго дня, мене звати Олена Вітвічко, я представляю агенцію розвитку
I am from the development agency for development of civil society. Thank you for the information. Now we find data in some different places. My first question: is it possible to add some more questions? How often do you organize such surveys? Can we get any information from the ministries? We are now planning to organize certain activities in Chernihiv region, but the only data we could get, we requested the commissariats, and then the correlation.
Вдячна за відповідь. Щодо другого питання мого, от тут зараз присутні кілька колег, громадська організація «Трансформація».
There's organization Transformation, several hundred psychologists who've been working for more than a year in different regions. Svetlana from Stebliuk Center, Alyona. I see many colleagues.
Які вже є навіть більше року, от Вінниця,
Vinnytsia is a great indicator.
зараз. Чому організації, які об'єднуються між собою, співпрацюють, готові надавати один одному допомогу? Готові ділити
Why are the organizations ready to cooperate, but why are they not supported by the state?
Власне, треба за всю державу відповідати.
I have to answer for the state.
Я можу сказати, значить,
I can tell you,
державна структура
any state entity is limited by certain rules,
там з бюджетним кодексом,
and that's related to the budget code.
Міністерство оборони,
For example, the Ministry of Defense
медичну допомогу, є стаття видатків, яка називається виділяється медичне забезпечення військовослужбовців, членів
They have one line in the budget which is called medical support and maintenance of the servicemen, families of servicemen and the veterans.
зробити крок вліво-вправо, це
And
називається цільове використання.
if you make a step to the right or to the left, that is called non-targeted use of money.
Партнерство. Ну, ви знаєте, це от одному Stebliuку там не побороти, навіть нам з вами
One Stebliuk will not be able to overcome that.
Чесно кажучи, не знаю, як нам це зробити.
I do not know how to do that. During Maidan, it was easier to resolve all these issues.
Не можуть при всьому бажанні
With all the desire of the minister to cooperate, to use all the positive,
бюджетного кодексу
we are limited by the budget code, by the budget of the country.
маневрувати ми, на жаль, не можемо. Так само, як ми не можемо маневрувати
And we cannot deviate. Talking about the numbers of civil servants, of positions, there's the total number of armed forces. To introduce psychologists, we have to dismiss someone else. There's now a reform of the Ministry of Defense going on.
того року завершити до 18-го міністерства, власне, а до 20-го
The ministry is to be reformed till 2018, till 2020. The armed forces, now we are reducing, dismissing about 200
але ну по цій психологічній
positions. But talking about Department of Social
так не дуже працював.
Policy, this department is liquidated now.
Зараз цей напрямок буде в департаменті освіти.
Now this will be under the Department of Education, Science and Social Humanitarian Policy. I hope this will help to make it more effective
Молоді керівники
when young
вони зможуть зорганізувати
leaders will be able to organize this work.
реформа структуризації міністерства.
And the reform of the structuring of the Ministry of Defense is directed towards giving the opportunity to work to those who want to work.
Колега зазначив,
And it's difficult, for example, when you employ someone, you cannot dismiss then this person. The same way they could not introduce any changes in the Ministry of Defense. And now there's a directive of the minister that everyone should undergo re-attestation, and that will be with the participation of the civil society organizations. They will all have to pass the polygraph test, lie machine test.
з патріотизмом і з порядністю.
Дякую. Якщо от уже є співпраця на
There's a cooperation at the level of the network of organizations. They work in different regions.
само з собою зрозуміло, що дуже багато проблем.
There are many problems, but what are the specific opportunities?
Ви можете надавати допомогу. Я буду дуже
Where can you render assistance?
Допомогу в чому?
The assistance in what?
Ну, по-перше, у нас трошки підходить, якщо у нас ставиться діагноз ПТСР, це нозологія, психічна.
If the diagnosis is post-traumatic stress disorder, that's nosology. It's if there are some consequences of the psychological trauma, that's somewhat different.
На жаль, на сьогодні все, що стосується психічного здоров'я, воно
Unfortunately, everything which is within the psychological health,
військово-лікарської експертизи. Те, що поза нозологічними формами, там можна працювати з психологом.
Вера Шевченко, 1,5 года.
Vera Shevchenko. I've been the coordinator of the military hospital. I continue to work as a volunteer.
Я позволю себе более резко выразиться, как обычно волонтеры выступают. На мой взгляд, 2 года Министерства обороны
I believe that for 2 years the Ministry of Defense
людей с диагнозами списывала на общество гражданское, списывала и так далее. Это касается не только подозревщиков, это прежде всего алкоголики, которых очень вовремя
has
наркоманы
been
подбирали с улицы, потом части и так далее. Сейчас это уже проблема общества.
not have been just writing off such people, especially alcoholics. They were trying not to deal with them, let the society deal with them.
Третье, то, что сказала Оксана Анатольевна,
Also what Oksana said,
старшины, ну, во-первых, не объяснили людям, это женщины, психологи, которые работают около дома, у них маленькие детки, мне объяснили, что несмотря на эту ставку, их на фронт не будут высылать. Ну, это, например, в Сумах, да, или в Шосткопечне. В госпитале на 100 человек работает одна женщина, и она боится пойти на эту ставку, потому что вдруг ее пошлют на фронт, а у нее дети.
so women are afraid to get a full-time job because they're afraid that they will be sent to the front line, and such women have children. No one explained to them that they will not be sent to the front line. We have many seminars.
Обучение бы не дало, если бы учились в университетах и так далее. Более того, я хочу, Наташа Шапошник, встань, пожалуйста. Вот, познакомилась с этой...
I would like to introduce you to Natalia Shaposhnikova. She was lecturing to us, to military. Do you know the number of seminars you lectured? She is a great clinical psychologist.
как необходимо. Вот наши женщины вытягивали все это 1,5 года, больше 1,5 лет. То, что сейчас я вижу решение их проблем. Прежде всего, на мой взгляд,
How could the problem be resolved now? All the volunteers are to get united into one entity that would be rendering psychological assistance to ATO veterans.
рада, что этот вопрос вставал. И сейчас уже становится привычным сообщением, что кто-то там в одном селе бросил гранату, кто-то еще подорвался от горя и ужаса, ну и так далее. На каждый такой случай в нашей службе мы разбираем
We now hear information about people who committed suicide. We analyze such cases. Or like today, some person called, he's alcoholic. No one can help him. He doesn't know what to do.
Неправильно, это неправильно по всем стандартам.
In our service, we have such thing as supervision. We need to get united. I can give you an example. Chervonograd has 17 organizations of ATO veterans. They're just competing between themselves. Similar situation between the organizations, volunteer organizations of psychologists. They're just competing. If we want not to just organize a PR campaign, but if we want to help people, we need to get united. We need to have clear steps, clear plans. One more thing. It is wrong if the state, when the state doesn't want to take care of veterans. Now when there will be another demobilization, there will be many people who will require assistance. When we compare our data to foreign data, Let's not forget the military in the US go to exercise some task for 2 weeks. They have 150 centers for those who were executing tasks in Iraq or in other places. Our war is such which puts a big challenge, and without the national program initiated by the Ministry of Defense, by the Ministry of Social Policy, by the Ministry of Health, we will not be able to improve the situation.
Будет решено. Я еще раз хочу просто высказать свое колоссальное уважение всем коллегам, которые, как и я, держат эту ситуацию пока в тех цифрах, о которых рассказывал Олег. Прошу вас, просто давайте мы будем объединяться.
So let us get united.
Якщо дозвольте, я хочу підтримати.
I would like to support Vera.
Для прикладу, в Канаді
In Canada, there's the Ministry on Veterans. There is one big veteran organization, Legion. It's one organization. It unites everyone. We have
асоціації учасників АТО, ну, близько 400
about 400 different organizations of ATO veterans. We have many different groups of associations of psychologists. 2-3 persons get together, they are the association. It is impossible to really implement re-socialization without uniting everyone's efforts, without creating one single system, without a coordination center. In Great Britain, where now they have about 2,000 disabled people after military actions,
проходять ще починаючи з війни в Перській затоці психологічну реабілітацію, є центр,
they have the center which is financed by veterans themselves. In our case, if veterans could get united, those 200,000 which participated in ATO, that could be the budget of a normal rehabilitation center,
рівні хоча б.
even if they contribute 1 hryvnia each. But for that, they need to get united.
Гетьманство своє там в маленькому в Куп'янську, там він голова асоціації ветеранів.
But they all want to be the heads of association of veterans,
Це треба це робити, да, там. От, але повинні
local
до
organization of veterans. But I would like to ask the veterans, the veterans from the armed forces, from volunteer battalions. No one owes us anything. We ourselves have to do everything. Not go, not tell that we were betrayed. We need to get united and do it ourselves. Psychological services support us. These are same people as we are, and only in such a unity of everyone who's interested.
давайте згадаємо Майдан.
Let's remember Maidan that lived
Керована
as a self-organized structure which demonstrated how people can govern their life. And now I address all the veterans, all the members of the families, the volunteers.
спільній роботі ми зможемо щось.
We will be able to achieve something only if we are united. Don't wait for the assistance from the state. We showed that we can achieve something.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm Alla Derzhavina. I'm head of Transformation Organization.
Так же, як і всі, я хочу підтримати всіх.
I want to support my colleagues.
Про те, що є певні проблеми,
There are some
але я
problems,
би поділила все ж таки
but I would
реабілітацію хлопців, які
separate the
воювали, які їх треба
rehabilitation
лікувати.
of
Соціально-психологічний
disabled persons and psychological and the other direction is psychological support. the guys who returned and were treated and underwent rehabilitation, they came back home. What should they do? And we went to social services, and I represent Oleksiy region, the Department of Support of Families, and we work with people, and we saw that there are a lot of documents.
Скільки у нас атовців, і скільки у нас поранених.
So we know information about these people, but there are a lot of documents that should be prepared, the orders, the papers, the documents, everything. So that was the problem. And servicemen, former servicemen, their family, the members of their families, they come to us, and sometimes it's enough to work with them in order that their child behaved himself. But of course we should motivate the state to support us. And I thank Kateryna for doing this, and we can see what are the main activities, and the Ministry of Social Policy and others. Our colleagues, they know what should be done and what laws to adopt. Thank you. Do I understand correctly that you want to simplify the system of address of requests, or maybe they should go to psychologists, and it should be a trend. So we should improve the culture of addressing the psychologist, and people should not be ashamed of doing this. So they should have a contact number, and maybe people should understand that this is not something to be ashamed of. They should create some clubs, associations, and they should communicate with each other, and it should be a trend. We should be able to go freely to psychologists. And it was said by our colleague. And those demobilized guys, and there should be information provided. Maybe we should provide information to the people that they can address to organizations, maybe through some leaflets that will be sent right to the addresses of the former servicemen. Do you have other questions? There is a question about the quality of psychological help, and my colleagues can support this idea. We provide some cards, visiting cards in the hospitals, and also colleagues, they distribute these visiting cards, and people assess the quality of psychological help, and we can popularize the service, but we have some distorted view. What is wrong with addressing psychologist if you can get professional help from him? And the second thing that is very important to popularize, don't provide alcohol to those who were demobilized. Because you know that relatives, they bring some alcohol, and they bring it in a really huge amount, and we should create some preventive measures. And one more thing. Psychological services, they should be united. We do not live in Stone Age. all this paperwork postpone really important things, and that's why there should be electronic system created at the level of state. And so lastly, the survey, what help is needed. We call people, they come to us and say that they suffer from some insomnia. We test people on the moment of demobilization in order to establish the needs of servicemen. But this information may be somehow distorted, but in the commissariat, they should carry out some testing of the servicemen. Svetlana wanted to say something. 1 minute left. And also, Svetlana Shapovalov, I'm the head of the Center for Rehabilitation at administration. We are not a government organization. We work as volunteers. And we send requests to all oblast administrations to invite our colleagues from there, but I cannot see anyone from them here. And in support of social services, I can say that they have huge event, and that because of that, they were interested, but they were not able to come. And as to Kyiv Oblast, psychological rehabilitation is not done correctly. It is nearly absent. And if it works, it means that volunteers are involved. Maybe some regions are more presented, like Irpinsky and Borispolsky regions. They are more presented as fast stuff. And in other regions, everything is not so good. So we should pay more attention to more remote regions. And some public servants, they do not work properly, and their activity is compensated by volunteers. And I would like to give the floor to the representative of Renaissance Fund, due to whom this event became possible. I would like to thank the authors of this research. And this is the first step for us. And the survey found out some problems, and of course the situation was not so dramatic as it was expected, but there are some problems. And of course we can carry out cooperation to establish the system of psychological help to the ATO area servicemen, and we are ready to support your ideas. You know, I know that you have great ideas, and I would like to stress that further steps should be maybe not big, but they should have clear result, because as we know, complex systems, they do not work properly, and simple things, they work. As this research shows, we have now where to start from, and we have some orientation. We will be glad to cooperate with you, and thank you very much for this research. Our press briefing is over. Thank you.